But I did have a colleague that was being abused, and I'll say abused by an administrator. It's a music colleague. This was years ago.
Mhm.
Not even sure if he's still with the division, but we do have a cap for our weekly classes. How many classes per week that
Yeah.
we are to teach? I believe it's 30 is the maximum. Which that's a heavy course load in itself. That's six,
Mhm.
6 classes a day, 5 days a week. And then back to what we were talking about earlier about, it being the building administrators being allowed to fill any non-class time with whatever. So
Yeah.
this colleague of mine was he was up over 30 classes per week. I think he was at like 32 or something.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, and which I asked him at the time, I'm like, even like how is that fitting? Like even if he had no duty, how are 32 classes a week fitting? And it was crazy. It was things like they had taken out transition times. So, one class might end at 10:30 and then the next one starts at 10:30, but it would be like that all day.
Yeah.
Um, there were like they had this crazy rotating you know, okay, well you're supposed to get 40 minutes, but because we don't have 40 minutes, this week you get 35 and so forth and so I mean
Wow.
it was insane. And so that teacher had been contacting the principal first saying, this is ridiculous and it's out of compliance with my
Mhm.
contract, all this stuff. No real response from the principal, as you can imagine.
Mhm.
um and if he pushed, it was things like, well, it's blaming downtown. And so then this teacher contacted whoever downtown, the director of elementary schools or whatever. um all this to say that they went back and forth because they also waited until the October shuffle where
Yeah.
they, they
Yep.
yeah, he was like, well, he thought sure that they'll, if I can survive it till then, surely they will put another
Yeah, and
allocation.
for those that don't know, the October
Yes.
Shuffle,
Yes, go ahead.
that's every year that happens where that's when they admit the issues, the staffing
Yes.
issues,
Yes, the staffing
and
issues,
I do
yes.
want to talk. I want to continue this
Sure.
your story there, but I do want to talk about allocations and
Oh,
how
yes.
they're because I always imagine like are allocations how do they decide allocations or is it just like in that South Park episode where just a bunch of manatees draw numbers out of like a little thing and put them in like okay Hermitage gets six third
5.
grader
Yeah.
teachers and
Right.
one and a half music teachers and yes.
Right. Which, and yeah, we should definitely come back to that because again, as somebody who teaches the entire school,
Yes,
I've got things to say about allocations. But so back to this colleague,
yes.
like I said, a music colleague, so at a different school. Um, you know, the October Shuffle did not produce any additional music
Support.
teacher allocation. So he was so exhausted, fed up, as you can imagine, that he was ready to resign just because it was, I mean, that was the epitome of unsustainable. I've had some terrible schedules, um but I saw his that
Oh.
year and it was, I mean, it just outrageous. It looked like a joke. So this teacher, he contacted the superintendent directly and copied his, sent a copy of his schedule and said, if this is how it's supposed to be, then I will make my own decisions about how I'm going to handle this. But if this is not how it's supposed to be, please fix it. And he got an email back from somebody else, not the superintendent, but got an email back saying, you will have a 1-day music teacher starting next Thursday.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I would have expected Spence's response to be something like this.
Deal with it.
Thanks for that.
Just deal with it. Yeah.
Well, that is often the response. I know that was the response that I got when I had a terrible schedule one year, and it was not as terrible as this person's, but it was still pretty terrible. That was the response that I got. So thank you for
What's
They-
funny too, like you
yeah.
talk about scheduling. Scheduling is
Yeah.
so stupid.
Right.
Like, and it's so silly because they again, which is I one of the fundamental problems with education is they focus on quantity instead of quality.
Sure.
Like,
Yep.
and we're given every beginning of every year, teachers are given a schedule, and it's different from site to site, even
Mhm.
though they like to tell you this is how it's done everywhere.
Right.
It's not necessarily
No.
true. And what starts to happen is, of course, is like for example, like the music specialist, art specialist, all the specialists will get together, and first they'll say, okay, here's where your music times are,
Right.
and then the teacher. Now it's traditionally then the teachers take that, and we have a certain number. Like each grade level has a certain number of language arts minutes, certain number of math minutes that we need to get. But what sometimes happens because of logistics and because also we get lunch times and everything, the powers that be that decide lunch times and decide all these things, they start planning this stuff out. They think that we, like, for one, they imagine that taking an entire class of 28 students from the music room to the classroom or from the classroom to the lunchroom takes 10 seconds because they'll schedule, like they'll say, all right, Mr. Burton, your music time ends at 10:55 and your lunchtime is 11 o'clock. Well,
Yeah.
okay, so that means that I have to take the kids from music room. They've either got, if they didn't already bring their lunch with them,
Yep.
we've got to go back and get their lunch, which of course we got to take them to the lunchroom, and it's just asinine. And then there's even more so when I'm making that schedule, that 10:55 to 11 o'clock gap, they expect you to fill it with language arts time minutes.
Yes.
And like I'm
Yes,
just
it's
like,
true.
how I'm like,
Yeah.
I just, that's comedy. I'm not gonna sit
Yeah.
there down the hallway and do word study with the kids. All right, CAT spells cat. What's for lunch today? Tuna fish. All right, TUNA.
How do
you spell asinine? Well, that's what I mean.
And see, we're laughing about it, but
It's gallows humor.
I was
We're
gonna
laughing.
say people. Well,
well, no, you're right. I did see colleagues that you and I both know walking down the hall with cards and with words, and I'm like, let me talk to you.
Yes, let me talk to you.
That's adorable, but
yeah. But on the same page, that year that I had that horrendous schedule with really no usable planning time, I was told that no, in fact, I have plenty of planning time because I have 5 minutes between classes. So if you add all that up, there's an hour. Boy, most people aren't that lucky.
Well, and I gotta speak both on behalf of regular of classroom teachers, but also on your behalf, that it creates issues that shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
For example, putting myself as a general education teacher, when I'm got to take my kids to music, it's usually we have to finish, we have to stop whatever we're doing. And it might be in the middle of a lesson, or it might be in the middle of a small group rotation, or it might be in something, and we have to consider that. But we can't just leave at that time and magically appear at your door. Flip side is, with your schedule being crazy, if you're lucky enough to have that 5 minutes where the between classes, you are dependent not only on me arriving on time, but also the previous teacher arriving on time to pick them up. And if either of us are late, regardless of reason, it could be us kicking back, smoking and joking, or it could be putting out a fire. It could be like 10 million things that happen and on a daily basis that we have no control over. So, and it causes friction. And I understand, I would understand your frustration. I understand the teacher's frustration. And what it does is it pits us against each other. Rather than realizing that the problem is not you or I. The problem is this schedule is stupid.
Right. And then you're bringing in, if I do have, if it's, if I'm watching your students because they haven't been picked up yet. And then the next class shows up, then you're adding even more turmoil to a situation because I'm thinking, well, great, my room's a mess. I didn't get to reset it for this incoming class. It's probably a different grade level doing a totally different lesson. The incoming teacher, the incoming
you might have a first grade class, and then it's going to be a fifth grade, or the fourth grade class is coming in with their recorders.
Yep.
But the first grade class, they were doing finger painting
yes,
notes,
exactly.
Notes on a music sheet or something.
Right. Well, but exactly. Or, and so there's that to consider. Then there's the incoming teacher, pacing around. Well, I have a meeting, or I have, all this stuff to do that's going to take longer than the 40 minutes that I get it for. And then it's, everybody's hands, in the air is, well, what do we do? What do we do? And what do you do?
Yeah. And I've had moments where I've arrived either at art or music, and the art or music instructor is not there. I don't mind. I get it, because what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll tap dance for the kids, or I'll try to get a vague idea of what they're doing and ask them, kind of quiz them on it, or just and I do that. It's a choice, because I shouldn't have to make that choice, because the schedule should be designed so that, but I know that music or art teacher, they're not in the classroom because they don't care. They're either handling something, or probably this is the only time in their day that they can go to the bathroom, and so their choice, instead of peeing their pants, they're going to be a little bit late. So, but it goes back to creating those issues,
right? And the schedule is something that administrators often don't want to talk about at all, because I mean, yes, as somebody who sees the entire school, I have no idea where my classes are coming to me from, or where they're going after they leave me, unless I'm explicitly told. I have no idea, and I don't keep track. And then, so there have been teachers in the past that say, gee, I know that you want the kids to bring their Chromebooks to music, which is great, because that's where all my activities are housed, and that's a whole other conversation.
That is,
but they'll say, kids need to bring their Chromebooks to music. Well, we go to lunch right after music. Can you help us with this? Of course I can, because you bring the Chromebook to music helps me. But if I wouldn't know if you didn't say anything. So then there's the teachers that, oh, well, this is so annoying, blah, blah, blah. I got to bring them to music. And then what am I supposed to do with them? It's like, well, if you would just ask me, they can leave them there, or I'll walk them back to your room so they can put them away, in enough time to then go to lunch or PE or wherever it is that they need to go. Let's work together on that, rather than.
Why is that so hard, though? Like, why do you feel like, why is it so hard? And it could speak to the state of mind that we're perpetually put in.
Yeah, I think that's it. And people don't. Yeah, and people don't want to be seen as complaining. And then there's a fine line between complaining about something, or working to resolve an issue. And I think that when you have an administrator who, doesn't want. Doesn't intend to touch the schedule. Again, those veteran teachers who know that the administrator is not willing to touch the schedule, they figure, why bother? That's our the newest, one of the newest trends is in August, work week, first of all, taking forever to release the schedule. And then, when the schedule is released, it's released with this, final copy. This will not be changed. And then I look at it and see I've got,
it's completely changed.
Well, but I see mistakes on it that have to be fixed. One teacher's scheduled for music twice, and another one doesn't have it at all. But I don't know which one is correct. And honestly, classroom teacher. Oh yes, overlapping. Oh my God, yes, that. So then you want to, you're on eggshells, saying, hey, I know you said this was the final copy. However, Mr. Burden's got music twice on different days at different times. He doesn't know which one is correct. I don't know which one is correct. And by the way, this teacher isn't scheduled for music at all. So
catch full episodes of the Educators podcast every Thursday at 4 p.m. Real educators with the real issues in education. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, take care of yourself. Jeans passes for anyone who likes, shares, and comments on this video. Have a great week.